Roger Locher had already spent 22 days hiding in North Vietnam when the rescue force finally came for him. And on June 1st, 1972, it came close enough for the whole thing to feel real. American aircraft were working toward his position near Yen Bai. Sandys were trying to pin him down. Rescue helicopters were coming in behind them. Then, the radio traffic changed. MiGs were up. Surface-to-air missiles were active. Ground fire was heavy. The helicopters were getting short on fuel, and the first rescue attempt was called off. Locher was going to spend another night on the ground. One correction before we go any farther, because the hardware matters here. The helicopters in this rescue were not Hueys. They were Air Force HH-53C Super Jolly Green Giants from the 40th Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Squadron. Big machines, built for this job, with range, armor, hoists, and aerial refueling capability. The title uses the word many people recognize first. The record gives us HH-53s, and that is what was actually trying to reach him. The man on the ground was Captain Roger Locher, Weapons Systems Officer in an F-4D Phantom with the 505th Tactical Fighter Squadron at Udorn, Thailand. His call sign that day was Oyster A-1 Bravo. On May 10th, the first day of Operation Linebacker, Locher and his pilot, Major Robert Lodge, were flying MiG cover over North Vietnam when their Phantom was hit during an air battle. Locher got out. Nobody in the other American aircraft saw him eject. Lodge did not return. And because nobody had seen a parachute, the men back at Udorn believed both crewmen were gone. Locher landed near Yen Bai, deep in North Vietnam, close to one of the places American rescue planners did not want a helicopter hanging around, unless they absolutely had to. He had a survival radio. He also had a problem. Using it could save him. Using it could also tell people on the ground that somebody was alive out there. So for most of the next 3 weeks, Locher stayed quiet. That decision is the part of his story I keep coming back to. A survival radio sounds like the obvious answer when you are alone. Call somebody. Get found. Get out. But Locher had landed in country where friendly aircraft could pass overhead, while enemy searchers were much closer. The radio did not erase that distance. It made a connection through it, and a connection was only useful if the rescue force could do something with it. For 22 days, Locher moved, hid, rationed what he had, and tried to stay away from roads, villages, and places where somebody might notice him. He lost weight. He covered miles on foot. He also kept listening for the chance that mattered. Then, on June 1st, American F-4s passed overhead. Locher transmitted on guard. The call sign got attention immediately. Oyster Z01 Bravo. That call sign belonged to a man most people thought had died 3 weeks earlier. One of the first pilots to hear him was flying home from a mission. Other aircraft came up on the frequency. The exchange was checked because nobody wanted to rush a rescue force hundreds of miles into North Vietnam for a voice that might be a trap. Locher answered. The people in the air became convinced it was really him. At that point, the problem changed completely. For 3 weeks, nobody had known there was a man to rescue. Now everybody knew. And Locher knew they knew. That is a very different kind of waiting. The rescue force started moving. 4 A-1 Skyraiders were part of the effort, the aircraft everybody in that business knew as Sandys. 2 HH-53s came with them. Fighters provided cover. An HC-130 supported the package. That sounds like a lot of machinery for one man. It was, because by 1972, going after a survivor that deep in North Vietnam could mean dealing with more than rifle fire around a pickup zone. There were anti-aircraft guns. There were surface-to-air missiles. There were enemy fighters. There were distances that ate fuel before the helicopter ever reached the man it was supposed to pick up. And somewhere below all of that was Locher with a small radio. The Sandys had to do the first close work. Their job was not simply to escort the helicopter like a police car leading traffic. They had to locate the survivor, confirm him, understand the terrain around him, identify where the enemy fire was coming from, and decide whether the helicopter had a reasonable path in and out. The rescue helicopter was the least maneuverable machine in the final seconds of the pickup. That made the Sandy's judgment important. A bad call could put a whole HH-53 crew on the ground beside the man they had come to save. Captain Ron Smith was one of the Sandy pilots involved in the rescue effort. On June 1st, he worked north toward Locher's reported location near the Red River and Yen Bai. The geography was bad. The defenses were worse. The rescue force began taking pressure from several directions at once. A MiG appeared around the helicopter holding area. Surface-to-air missiles were a threat. Anti-aircraft fire came up from below. And while the Sandys were still trying to get an exact location on Locher, the Jollies were burning the fuel they needed to get home. That last part matters because helicopters nearby and helicopters available for pickup are not the same thing. A rescue crew can be willing to go. The survivor can be talking. The Sandys can be working the area. And the fuel state can still end the attempt. By the time the first day force had worked far enough north to understand the situation, the HH-53s were approaching their fuel limit. They could not stay over hostile territory until every other problem had been solved. So the decision was made. Abort for the day. Go back. Build a bigger rescue for tomorrow. From the planning side, that was a rational call. From Locher's side, it meant one sentence. Stay hidden one more night. That is where this episode lives, not in whether the rescue force cared enough. There is no question about that. It lives in the distance between wanting to pick up a man and being physically able to get a helicopter over him without losing another crew. Locher had made contact. That was the good news. The bad news was that contact did not move him 1 foot closer to Thailand. When the aircraft left the area on June 1st, he was still near Yen Bai, still on the ground, still alone, and now he knew exactly how difficult it was going to be for them to reach him. If you flew rescue, Sandy, FAC, or worked a command post supporting pickups in Southeast Asia, this is the detail I would like to hear about from you. Once you had voice contact with the survivor and knew where he was, what usually killed the pickup first in your experience? Enemy guns, weather and visibility, fuel, or something less obvious in the coordination? Different crews and different years may give very different answers. For Locher, June 1st ended without a pickup, but it did not end without a plan. The next day's effort would be much larger. General John Vogt, commanding 7th Air Force, made the decision to redirect major air resources toward getting Oyster 01 Bravo out. Strike activity planned for that part of North Vietnam was adjusted so aircraft could support the rescue. The number of airplanes involved grew into the dozens and then beyond 100, depending on how the supporting missions are counted. There were fighters, Wild Weasel aircraft working against missile defenses, tankers, electronic warfare support, bombers, Sandys, and the HH-53s. All of that for one man with one radio. The scale can make the story sound grander than it felt on the ground. Locher still had to wake up where he had gone to sleep. Nobody could put all those airplanes beside him at once. Most of them existed to make one narrow helicopter route possible for a few minutes. That was the whole point. Open a window. Get Jolly Green 57 through it. Close it again before the enemy could put something into the helicopter. Captain Dale Stovall was flying the low Jolly. His aircraft was an HH-53C. The call sign commonly associated with the pickup is Jolly Green 57. The Sandys went ahead. They were not flying in to produce spectacle. They were trying to solve a practical question they had not solved well enough the day before. Where, exactly, was Locher? A man under tree cover is a small target, even when he wants to be found. The new rescue package included electronic direction-finding help that could use his radio transmission to narrow the search. That reduced one kind of uncertainty. It did not remove the ground fire. The rescue force pushed north again. Locher had already learned something important the previous day. Hearing American voices on the radio did not mean the helicopter was 5 minutes away. Sometimes it meant somebody was still trying to figure out whether 5 minutes was possible. The Sandys worked the area first. Locher talked them toward him. They used terrain references. They checked what he could see. They matched the signal to the ground. The system was simple in theory. Survivor talks, aircraft locates him, helicopter comes in. In practice, every one of those verbs could take time. And time was what the rescue force had spent so badly the day before. This time, the support package was built to buy more of it. The Americans attacked known or suspected threats around the route. Aircraft watched for MiGs. Others worked the missile problem. Tankers stayed in the system because range remained part of everything. Stovall kept moving toward the pickup area. The closer Jolly Green 57 got, the less useful the big picture became. 100 supporting aircraft could not fly under the trees for him. The last part still belonged to one helicopter crew. The HH-53 came down low. Locher was under heavy vegetation. The crew used the radio signal and the Sandy guidance to get over the right spot. Then, they had to hold there. That is another thing the word pickup hides. A helicopter rescue from jungle cover is not the aircraft landing beside the survivor while somebody opens a door. The helicopter may have to hover above the canopy while a cable and rescue device go down through the trees. That means the aircraft stays in one place. For an enemy gunner, a helicopter in a hover is a much easier problem than a fast jet. The crew knew it. So did the Sandys. The jungle penetrator went down. Locher reached it. After 23 days on the ground, he began moving upward. There is a temptation to make that the emotional high point and stay there. But the helicopter was still over North Vietnam. Getting Locher onto the cable did not end the rescue. Stovall still had to get Jolly Green 57 away from Yen Bai. The Sandys still had to cover him. The fighters still had to keep the larger threats off the helicopter. Only after the HH-53 was moving away with Locher aboard did the problem finally become one of distance in the right direction. The man who had spent 3 weeks trying not to be found was now inside one of the largest rescue helicopters the Air Force owned. He had made his first useful voice contact the day before. The first force had come for him and turned back. Then the second force came. And this one did not leave him there. There is a detail from the rescue that tells you how uncertain the whole thing remained, even among the Americans. Locher had been missing so long that some people initially doubted the voice on the radio was really him. Think about what that does to the normal rescue sequence. Usually, the clock starts when the airplane goes down. For Locher, the formal rescue clock started again 3 weeks later. The men coming for him were not simply locating a survivor. They were locating a survivor who had effectively returned from the dead in the paperwork. His radio made that possible. That little transmitter changed his status from presumed lost to active rescue problem. And once that happened, the United States Air Force moved an extraordinary amount of machinery to answer one voice. I do not say that to make the operation sound perfect. June 1st proves it was not. The first attempt failed. The threat picture was too heavy. The Jollies were low on fuel. The force had to leave. Locher stayed. That failure is part of why June 2nd worked. They had a better location. They knew more about the defenses. They understood what the route required. And senior command was willing to commit enough support to make another attempt possible. That is how real rescue often looks in the records. Not one dramatic run. A problem gets worked. An attempt closes. Somebody learns something. The next attempt is built around what went wrong. Locher's story is unusually clean because the second attempt succeeded. Many were not. And that is another reason I would not turn this into a simple story about bravery. Everybody involved on June 1st could have been brave and still failed. Bravery did not create fuel. It did not remove MiGs. It did not turn off the missile sites. It did not make Yen Bai less dangerous. The successful rescue came from men willing to go back after learning that willingness by itself was not enough. The records agree on the broad sequence. Locher made contact on June 1st. A rescue force went north. Enemy air and ground threats complicated the attempt. The HH-53s were running short of fuel. The force withdrew. A much larger operation was organized for June 2nd. Jolly Green 57, flown by Dale Stovall, reached Locher and brought him out. What I will not add is a line saying Locher heard helicopter rotor blades fade away on June 1st. I have not found a reliable first-hand source that lets me say that. He knew the rescue had been aborted. He knew he was staying. That is enough. Sometimes the cleanest version of a story is not the truest one. The radio is better anyway, because that was the object that connected every part of this episode. For 22 days, Locher's radio was mostly something he dared not use. On June 1st, it brought American aircraft back into his life. That same day, it also carried the news that they could not reach him yet. On June 2nd, it helped the Sandys and the rescue force narrow his position until Jolly Green 57 could get over the trees. The radio never moved. The whole rescue moved around it. After Locher returned to Udorn, General Vogt was there to meet him. There are photographs of that moment. They are useful because everybody in them knows something we know too. The day before, this had failed. That is what gives the successful pickup its real weight. Not that the rescue force never turned away. It did. They turned away on June 1st. They came back on June 2nd. The concrete line I would keep from the record is the call sign. Oyster 01 Bravo. For 3 weeks, it belonged to a man the Air Force thought was gone. Then, it came over guard again. And by the next day, Jolly Green 57 was carrying him south.